The average NBA player, from a salary perspective, pulls in about 5.4 million in a contract. The average WNBA female player, 120,000. So, we're talking about more than just pay, but certainly that is a component of all of this as well.
So if we think about, again, what is this, when we think about it being a little bit more systemic, a couple of additional examples that of all of the sports on TV, and if you think about all of the regular channels and the premium packages that you can buy, only 4% of all sports broadcast on television are female.
I find that shocking. I mean, it just feels
and
shocking.
To make that number even smaller, 0.4% of total sports sponsorships is devoted to women's sports and athletes, which makes a lot of sense why the WNBA needed to find somebody who would help connect them to those opportunities, because they are not as readily available to women as they are to men. And again, another drastic comparison is for every dollar that a company invests in an endorsement deal for men's sports, less than half a penny goes to the women's game. And this is all founded in a common excuse or assumption, if we want to say, that women don't bring in the same money. And so I think, is that really true? And what are the factors that lead to that? Before we can talk about business, what should equity look like in sports? And so the real trigger behind us having this conversation today is I heard Natalie Portman talking about the U.S. national women's soccer team. And at the World Cup, everyone watches. Children and adults are celebrating and idolizing these female players. And then the same players come back and play in a league in the US, and no one even knows that it exists. And so to change this, she had to build a business case to overcome that same assumption that women's sports wouldn't bring in the same amount of money. And the model that she described, instead of focusing on the team's performance, the salaries, the wage gap, the profit in the industry, she focused instead on the investment made to the difference in the two types of teams. And so for Angel City, which is her team in LA, she asked and she said, think about just women's sports. This is really before Angel City was a new team, but in the US National League. And she said, are the women's games broadcast on premier sports networks like ESPN and the other top networks? Are the women's teams broadcast at popular viewing times when they're going to garner the most attention? Are our games even covered with the same level of journalism as the men's games? Do we have the same number of cameras that it takes to shoot a really dynamic game that people want to watch because it looks exciting and fun? Are our games even marketed as broadly so that people know that they're on and should be interested in tuning in? Do our teams have access to the same level of brand sponsorships as the men's team? And do we have access to the same amount of advertising dollars? Are key companies investing the same in advertising during a women's game as they are during a men's game? We all know that from consumer marketing, that's all tied together. And so Natalie Portman really challenged this status quo in a new way, because she said, give us an equal opportunity to make money. And if we don't, you validated your belief. But equal opportunity is not just about also having a women's field to play on. It's really equivalent opportunity to be successful in the same way that the men's success is both facilitated and measured.